All right, good afternoon. We are going to make corrections on our quiz over lessons 2.1 through 2.4. And if you come to class on Friday with your quiz corrections made, you can retake this quiz. Scores will be averaged together, so hopefully you'll do better. But keep in mind, if you don't do better, the scores will still be averaged together. So you want to make sure you spend a little bit of time studying if that's what you want to do. So what I'm going to do right now is go over any questions, and as you're watching this video, if you want to fast forward because you understand a certain question, that would be fine. Rewind if you want to see a question again, and that would be fine too. Whatever you want to do to make this be something that you guys can actually use. So hopefully this video is something you can see as well. Hopefully the quality is good enough. It says graph the following piecewise function. So it says f of x is equal to -1 if x is less than or equal to -1. If f of x is at -1, and I'm along this line right here, but I'm only going to be on that line when the x values are less than or equal to -1. So it's going to be here and to the left. And it's going to look something like that. I'm going to move this a little bit closer so that you guys can maybe see this a little bit better. Okay? The next one is f of x equals x plus 1. And it's equal to x plus 1, that means the y-intercept is 1 and the slope is 1. So here's the y-intercept and the slope is 1. It's going to look something like this. But it's only going to be equal to that between, if the x values are between -1 and +2, but not including them. So here's where it's -1 and here's where it's +2. And I'm going to have open circles on both of those spots because it doesn't include those intervals. So then the next part of this is y equals -1/2 x plus 4. This is going to start at +4 and the slope is -1/2. So I'm going to go down 1 over 2, down 1 over 2, down 1 over 2. And that line looks like this. But I'm only going to include that line when the x values are greater than or equal to 2, which is right there, which means that open circle is now filled, and we're going to be pointing everything in this direction. And so your graph is going to look something like that. The second part of this, there, now we can maybe see this a little bit better. The second part of this is f of 4 and f of -4. Well, that means the input value is 4. If the input value is 4, that means I'm greater than or equal to 2, which means I'm going to use this function, and I'm going to plug in 4. -1/2 times 4 is -2, plus 4 is simply 2. If f is -4, that means the input value is -4, which is less than or equal to -1, which means I'm at -1. And each of those are worth a point. Let's take a look at number 2. Number 2, use this mapping diagram. Is this a function? Well, anytime I plug in a number, like if I plug in 3, I get 5. If I plug in 4, I get 6. If I plug in 5, I get 6. And I know exactly where I go. So yes, that is a function. But if we go to number 3, this one we could do with the vertical line test. If I were to plug in 1, I don't know if I'm going to be here or here. And so it would give me 2 output values for each input value. So no, that is not a function. Let's move on to the second page. Second page here, starting with this graph here. We're supposed to graph that equation, and we know that the vertex can be found by -b over m. In other words, this is going to be +3 over 1, which is +3, and then the c value, which is -2. So the vertex is at the point 3, -2, which is right here. Then, to find our slope, we multiply our a times our m together, which is 2 times 1. So our slopes are plus or minus 2. And because this a is positive, it's going to open up. So I'm going to go up 2 over 1, up 2 over 1, up 2 over 1, or up 2 left 1, up 2 left 1, up 2 left 1, and I get a graph that looks like this. It says label at least 3 points, so you'd have to label something like this. 3, -2, maybe this is the point here, 4, 0. Then this point here is like 2, 0. And so that's what I meant by labeling those points, but I don't think I took points off if you didn't have it labeled. Let's do the same thing for number 5. This parabola, or this V, is going to be opening down because the A value is negative. To find the vertex here, we're going to take negative 4, which is positive 4, over 2, which is at 2, and then the C value is 3. So this is going to start at 2, 3, which is right here. Then we're going to find the slopes. The slopes are negative 1 times 2, which is 2. Slope's are going to be plus or minus 2, only this one's going to open down. So we're going to go down 2 over 1, down 2 over 1, down 2 over 1. Or I can go down to left 1, and I'm going to get a V that looks like this. Okay, so that's what number 5 looks like. Let's move on to number 6. Write two linear equations that can be used to graph the following absolute value function. So what I'm going to do is take a look at, here's our absolute value function. I want to isolate the absolute value part. So I'm going to start by adding 3 to both sides, and I'll have y plus 3 equals 2 times the absolute value of x minus 2. I still have something outside of the absolute value, and that is a 2. I want to get rid of that 2, so I'm going to divide both sides by 2. And now I'm going to write two separate equations. One of my equations will be that y plus 3 over 2 really does equal x minus 2. The other equation will be y plus 3 over 2 equals the negative of what's left in the absolute value, which is negative x plus 2. And what I want to do is get both of these in slope-intercept form. Some of us didn't put it in slope-intercept form, and I didn't take off. I probably will in the test, though, but I probably should have put in my directions also to put it in slope-intercept form. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to multiply both sides by 2 here. So I'll have y plus 3 equals 2x minus 4. And if I subtract 3 from both sides, one equation will be 2x minus 7. The other equation over here, I'll multiply both sides by 2, so y plus 3 will equal negative 2x plus 4. And when I subtract 3 from both sides, y will equal negative 2x plus 1. And that's my other equation. All right, let's move on. Take a look here at number 7. I'm going to take 2 times the f of x function. So it's going to be 2 times x squared plus 2x minus 1. Then minus 3 times the g of x function, which is 2x minus 4. This is going to be 2x squared if I distribute, plus 4x minus 2, and then minus 6x, and then plus 12, because negative 3 times negative 4 is positive 12. So if I combine like terms, I'll have a 2x squared, I'll have a 4x minus 6x, which is negative 2x, and a negative 2 plus 12 is positive 10. And that's what you should have for number 7. Number 8, we're multiplying these two together. So we're going to take the f of x function, which is x squared plus 2x minus 1, and we're going to multiply that times 2x minus 4, which is the g of x function. So I'm going to start by distributing out the x squared. X squared times 2x is 2x to the third. X squared times negative 4 is negative 4x squared. Then 2x times 2x is 4x squared. 2x times negative 4 is negative 8x. Then negative 1 times 2x is negative 2x. And negative 1 times negative 4 is positive 4. And then we're going to combine our like terms. 2x to the third. Negative 4x squared plus 4x squared, those cancel each other out. There's 0. Negative 8x and negative 2x is negative 10x. And then plus 4. And that's what you should have as your answer for number 8. Let's move on and take a look at number 9. Now we have a composite of two functions here. So what I'm going to do is take the g of x function, the entire g of x function, which is 2x minus 4, and stick that in as the x in the f of x function. So it's going to look like this. The f of x function is x squared. But instead of using x, I'm going to have 2x minus 4 squared. Then it's plus 2 times x. But instead of using x, I'm going to have 2x minus 4. And then it's minus 1. And then I just want to simplify this equation. So if I take 2x minus 4 and square it, I'll take 2x times 2x, that's 4x squared. I'll have a 2x, it's like I'm foiling here. I should probably do this, 2x minus 4. 2x times 2x is 4x squared. 2x times negative 4 is negative 8x. Negative 4 times 2x is another negative 8x. Negative 4 times negative 4 is positive 16. Then I'm going to move over here. 2 times 2x is 4x. 2 times negative 4 is negative 8, and then minus 1. So we have 4x squared, minus 8x, and plus 4x. Negative 8 and negative 8 is negative 16, plus 4 is negative 12x. But then I have a 16 minus 8, which is 8, and then minus 1, which is 7. Hopefully I didn't make a mistake there. So let's move on to number 10 then. Switching it around, we're going to take the entire f of x function and plug that in to the g of x function. The f of x function is x squared plus 2x minus 1. So the g of x function is 2 times x, but we're not going to use x. We're going to use x squared plus 2x minus 1, and then minus 4. So if I distribute my 2, to simplify this, it's 2x squared plus 4x minus 2 minus 6, which is going to be 2x squared plus 4x minus 8. And that's what you should have as your answer for number 10. Let's move on to the last page here. Last page, number 11. It says, write the following absolute value inequality, or graph the following absolute value inequality. And so if we're going to graph this equation, the vertex is at negative b over m, which is going to be positive 1, comma, c, which is 3. So we're going to start at the point 1, 3. The slope is 1, because it's a times m, that's 1, and it opens down. So I'm going to go down 1 over 1, down 1 over 1. It's not equal to it, so this is going to be a dotted line, and a dotted line going in this direction. It's just the values greater than that, which means I'm going to shade everything above that line. And it's a dotted line. All right, let's move on and take a look at number 12. I'm going to find g of f of 2. That means I'm going to take 2 and plug it into the f of x function. The f of x function is just x plus 3. So I'm going to take 2 plus 3, which is 5. And then I'm going to take 5 and stick that into the g of x function. So the g of x function is x squared, so I'm going to have 5 squared, plus 2 times 5 minus 3. Well, that's 25 plus 10 minus 3, which is 35 minus 3, which is 32. If I do the same thing in an opposite direction with number 13, I'm going to take 3 and stick it into the g of x function. That's going to be 3 squared plus 2 times 3 minus 3. Well, 3 squared is 9, plus 2 times 3 is 6, minus 3. 9 plus 6 is 15, and 15 minus 3 is 12. But then I'm going to take 12 and stick that into the f of x function, which is just 12 plus 3, which is 15. And that's what you should have for number 13. Now let's take a look at number 14. Probably the most mistakes on number 14. Let's just take a look at this together. It says to take f divided by g of x in simplified form and then find the domain of the new function. So the f function is x plus 3. The g of x function is x squared plus 2x minus 3. But we want to simplify this. We can't just simplify it by crossing off the 3's or crossing off the x's. What we're going to have to do is factor this expression on the bottom. In other words, x times x I know gives me x squared. I'm looking for something here that when I multiply it together gives me negative 3, but when I add it together it gives me a positive 2, like positive 3 and negative 1. Then 3 times negative 1 would be negative 3. This would be 3x. This would be negative 1x, which gives me 2x. So if this is something you struggle with, we're going to have to practice this and get better at it as the year goes on, but it's something that we should know how to do. Now that I have this factor of x plus 3 and I have an x plus 3 on the top, those factors can cancel out, and I'm left with 1 over x minus 1 is the simplified answer to f over g of x. Now, the domain is an interesting thing because it's all real numbers except x cannot equal 1, because if it does equal 1, then this is equal to 0. But it also cannot equal negative 3. And the reason it can't equal negative 3 is because if I stick a negative 3 in this process when I'm here, then negative 3 plus 3 is 0, and I'm still dividing by 0. Negative 3 would make the g of x function 0. And so if I divide by 0, it's still going to give me something that's undefined. And that's what you should have then for number 14. hopefully all this makes sense. If you would like to retake a similar quiz to this, I'm just changing the numbers, same kind of questions. I'll average the two scores together. You're welcome to do that in class tomorrow. And we'll see everybody later on.